Good morning, everyone, or just my distance learners. Good morning to you. I want to take a moment to go through your supply kit that you picked up. Thank you for getting it. If you haven't yet, you better be contacting me so we can work something out. And you're going to need it soon, okay? So don't be like those 3 students I had in second trimester that didn't bother to tell me, oh, I don't have my supply kit until like 2 weeks before the end of the try. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make sure you get your supply kit. Now, if you got your supply kit, it should be a large folder. Most of them are yellow, some of them are red, and a Ziploc container with a blue lid. So let's go through it. Okay, so here are my things. Now I did label mine. I put a piece of tape on it so that it's easier for me to find. But if you're at home, you're not going to confuse yours with anyone else because it's just yours. Maybe you have a sibling who's taking class at the same time as you or something like that, but that's probably not the case for most of you. So here we go. Large folder. This folder can become yours. You can decorate it. You can do whatever you like with it. You can trash it if you want. If you have a better way to keep yourself organized, I'm all for that. Or you can just keep it and then return it to me at the end of the trimester. Let's go through the few things that are in here. Everybody should have some sort of magazine. Hopefully it's an arts magazine so that it has lots and lots of different images and colors and things inside it that you can and probably will use at some point. So you have some sort of magazine. You also have really large paper. And this paper, if you're like, well, how large is it? It should be about the size of the folder itself, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, so you should have 3 to 4 pieces of that we will use for a variety of things. Please don't fold it. Keep it large and flat. You also have a folder of some color. We have all kinds of variety in the color you wound up with. Now within that folder, you should find this is the same quality of paper as I just showed you here. That means it's the same thickness. It has the same sort of feel to it when you touch it. It's just smaller. It's half the size, okay? It's bigger than regular printer paper and it's thicker. So it's like good quality drawing paper, okay? And we'll use it for crafting. Now, everybody's folder might look a little bit different, but it should have all of the same things. Now, the way that I tried to set them up was that we have decorative papers that we can use on this side, and we have other things, including a couple of printouts on this side. Now, if your layout doesn't look like this, that's fine. It just means that you have one of my leftover folders from last trimester, so it's just not organized quite the same. But like I said, you should have all the same things. So let's go through the left side first. On the left side, you should have 2 handouts. One is a drawing challenge, and this one is just really for fun. If you are a person that's taking this class and you're interested in drawing or you want to doodle or sketch, that's what this is for. It's an optional thing for you to use, and if there's ever a time where you're asking me like, well, what can I do? I'm done with my project early. I might direct you to this. It's kind of a fun thing. It's a 30-day challenge, of course, like it says up the top, and you'll notice the numbers go across and then the arrows sort of lead you around to where the other numbers need to go. Some of them aren't in order like you would expect. And down at the very, very bottom, it says color each task as you complete them. So if you're going through this, take a moment to color them in when you're done. That makes it a little bit easier to navigate if you're using it frequently. But again, more so just for fun, more so just for your own personal enrichment or for you to use as an extension activity if you finish things early. Okay. Now the Zentangle, this is a meditative artistic process that we might or might not get to in terms of learning how to do it. We definitely spend some time in it in my drawing class, but again, it's just an opportunity for you to do something creative and to potentially use like as an extension activity if you finish things early. It does kind of talk about it here a little bit. If you just Google Zentangle, you'll find lots and lots and lots of different visuals and patterns, and there is a website. This is an official drawing process, but you can just sort of try your own here based on the sort of patterns and doodles that you see if you want. Now, You'll also find you have a gift card. This has no money on it. I'm sorry. And they all look a little different. They were donated to us by Target. These are things that we can use for sculpting, or for if we get to a point where we're using clay this trimester, maybe you can use it for smoothing. If you got one because you're in a ceramics class, that's definitely what you're using it for. You'll find it also has a bendy sort of quality to it, and it's something that we can cut and we can manipulate. So I'm sorry, no money, but it is for you to use as a tool. Okay. These two little panels, you should have two that match. If they don't match, it's not a big deal. These will become book covers when we do one of our bookmaking projects, so please sort of keep those. If you don't like the color, that's fine, because we can decorate and change it up later on, okay? It's just meant to be sort of a sturdy, it's like cardboard, but it's not as thick, okay? So, should be two of those. And you have an envelope. And this envelope is, excuse me, it has the school's return address on it. We may or may not get to this. It was just sort of left over. On this side, now there is another envelope in there. Oops. And it might be a large manila colored envelope, kind of like this, or it might be just another one like I just showed you. I don't have a specific use for these in mind at the moment, but some of them have inside them. These are paint swatches, like paint samples. Now, everybody should have paint samples on this side. It just, some of yours will be in an envelope and some will not. It really doesn't matter. The whole thing about this half of the folder is really that these things are meant to be used for decorative purposes, okay? And so you have the opportunity to use all these different color swatches, and this one's a little heavy on the yellows, but some of yours are a little more heavy on reds or greens or blues. You should have a little bit of variety in here, though. This paper is very thin, and it has a very almost like a slippery, kind of shiny quality to it, okay? So when we're making any project where we're using papers, you can feel free to use these or any of these other things, okay? So paint swatches, there should be 3 about the same size, 3 to 4 about the same size that are just different colored. Some of them are more iridescent. That means they have kind of a shimmer or a shine to them. These were just old papers that were donated that I've never really used before. So you guys have the option of using them, again, for decorative purposes on any of our assignments. Now, these ones are all same sort of thing. They're just very thin pieces of paper, and they have different patterns on them. Now, these came as a set of papers that were like designs from around the world, and so you might find some inspiration there, or some designs that remind you of different cultures. That's sort of the idea behind these papers. Now, again, options, right? And some of yours might look different than the ones I just showed you. You also have a piece of grid paper and at least a couple pieces of colored construction paper. I tried to include colored paper as well as some black for everybody. And then that should be it as far as the papers go. But remember, these are all just decorative options that you have when it comes time to do bookmaking, or when we're making a collage, or when we're making beads, or anything that we're using papers for. These are options. Now, of course, if you have your own decorative papers at home, you can use those as well. Just wanted to make sure to give you some different qualities of paper and some different colors of paper. So I'm just tucking everything of mine back in here so I can keep myself organized when it comes time to use it later on. Now, like I said, if you want to organize yourself in a different way, that's fine. Okay. Now, there should just be one more thing in this folder, and that would be a Ziploc baggie. And the Ziploc baggie should have some thread and some cord in it. So when you open it up, you should find 3 different colors of thread. This is called embroidery thread, or embroidery floss. And hopefully these colors look decent together, right? If you don't love the combination, then, hopefully you can come up with some sort of combination you like, right? Or maybe you just want to use one. And if you hate all of them, well, then I'm sorry. It is what it is. But Embroidery thread is something that we can use when we're sewing or when we are doing embroidery, which is decorating using threads. You might use this when we do bookmaking. You might use this if and when we get to our fiber arts project. You might use this again when we get to collage or jewelry making. You can use this for beading. You can use this thread for all kinds of different things. So that's that. Now this, you should have black and a brown or tan sort of color. This is hemp cord. And again, you'll use this most likely when we do jewelry making for making bracelets, but it's the same sort of thing. You can bead with it. You could sew with this. It's a little more stiff, so people don't often use this in fiber arts or with sewing, but it's an option. You might also use this when it comes time to do bookmaking or any of the collage pieces. So if you don't have quite this much, that's understandable. It's not a big deal. Again, these are just trying to give you options, okay? Now, that should be everything from your yellow or your large folder, whether that was a yellow folder or a red folder, does not matter. It should be all of the same supplies. Now, in here, this is the thing where I'm going to ask you to make sure you keep track of these things. And once this is opened, please don't let these things get lost. Okay, there's a lot of stuff crammed in here, and it should be an easy way where you can keep all of your supplies organized. They don't need to come out of here, really, unless you're making something with them. Okay? Now, in here, you will find 4 little folders. And these 4 little, oops, actually I have 5 for some reason. You should have 4. And these all have beads in them. Now I have I have instructions on these because I had people helping me make all the kits, but really they should be labeled in this way. They should say random. They should say funky. They should say black or metallic. And then the last one I dropped says glass. Okay, so glass, black and metallic, funky, and random. And they're just different types of beads. Now there's not really any reason to why I decided to call them funky beads, I guess, for example, except that I just didn't have a good name for the group of them. So yours should be stapled. If you pull the staple off, you don't have to do that at this point, but when you do, just be careful that these things don't get lost. So I have a random assortment of little funky things here that didn't really fit into any of the other categories. See, and there's why you shouldn't open this before you're ready to do some beading. So please don't open the beads until we get to a project where we're using them. And if you do, just take care to make sure that they don't get lost, okay? Now, when we're doing bead projects, you might find that for example, I will use this little tray as a place where I can dump my beads out and they won't get lost or they won't roll off the table now because there's a little edge, okay? That would be a trick that I would encourage you to use. You could also use like the lid of a shoebox for this. That has nice tall sides on it so things don't get lost. Or you could do something like this, like I have a roll of tape. And if I use this roll of tape on top of some paper, then I can dump my beads in there and they won't get lost, right? They kind of stay without winding up all over the place, okay? So please, please, please don't open up your beads. You have no need to open up your beads until we get to a beading project, okay? So now I have to take care to dump them all in there and hope they don't get lost. And I did drop one, okay? So they're stapled for a reason. Please try not to lose them because I don't want anybody to tell me, when it comes time to do a bead project, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, Miss K, I lost all my beads. Or I dumped them on the carpet on accident and I can't find them. Well, be careful, okay? So those are the beads that you have in your kit. Now, in your kit, you also have a few drawing utensils that I gave you, or things that are just going to help us do some nice, neat writing when it comes time to, for instance, when we're doing our bookmaking. You might use these when we're doing little drawings or when we're doing sketches. They're just, again, options. So there's a fine point black Sharpie so that you can do little detail work and outlining even. Okay. Same sort of thing here with red. It's just, it's not a Sharpie. It's a felt tip marker, but it will do the same sort of thing. And then again, you have a couple more Sharpies here. Now, hopefully your Sharpies look good together. The color doesn't necessarily matter. Again, I was just trying to give you some variety so you weren't just stuck with black and red all the time, okay? So options, options, options. You also should have a teeny little bottle of glue. This is a brand new bottle. It's never been opened before. Take care to make sure that it is closed all the way, especially if you're going to continue to keep it in the kit. After we've used it, twist it all the way closed. Otherwise, when you lay it down in there, it's going to leak and get glue everywhere, and that will be a big mess. I like these little bottles because they are so compact and little, and most of our projects we're going to be using won't be using a lot. I think that liquid glue works a lot better than glue sticks, though. So you guys are the first group to try these out, and I hope that you like using them the way that I hope we will. So, glue bottle. You will also find a little baggie. Well, actually, let's do this first. Sandpaper. One little bit of sandpaper. We will use this when it comes time to do wire working. The sandpaper can be rubbed against the edges of the wire to make sure that they're not sharp so they don't cut us. And right now, these probably have not been sanded down, right? So if you're not careful, or if you just even touch on the side a little bit, you can feel that it's sharp. So when we do our wire working, we make rings and jewelry with the wire, we will use this to sand down the edges. Okay? So make sure that doesn't get lost. We also have one tiny, some sort of small baggie. It might not be this teeny tiny, but the small baggie has jewelry findings in it. So earring hooks, jump rings, clasps for making bracelets, all kinds of little things. I'm not going to take them out right now. I will talk more about this when we start using these things, but please just keep it sealed up. There's a lot of different things in here. Okay. There is also, oops, my things fell out of my jewelry bag. There is also a little mini keychain ring here. Should probably be gold in color, and it's for making a keychain later on. You know what keychains are like. And then two of these little guys. I don't know the official name. They're kind of like ring clips. Okay, so if you push, so up here I'm pushing this way, and down here I'm pushing that way. I'm doing that. And then the clasp opens. Sorry, I'm holding it up. Hopefully you can see it. Right, when I give it that pressure, the clasp opens. Sorry, my camera isn't focusing. I don't know why. And then I can pull it apart like that. Okay. So the idea here is that we may use these with bookmaking, or maybe if you choose not to use them when it comes time to bookmaking, then you have options for later on in the trimester, if and when we get to other projects where you might need the little metal starting points, okay? So 2 ring clasps, and then everything else that's in here should be wire. Now, when the lid gets open, some of this wire will kind of spring out at you because it's bigger than the bin and it has been twisted to fit inside, okay? The thing with the wire is that we're going to use it multiple times for multiple different projects, including for jewelry making. And you have some different gauges of wire here. Now, a gauge of wire is the thickness of the wire, and you also have different colors, if you will. So we have a whole bunch of this big loop stuff that's thicker, and it's like a large ring because that was just the large spool it came on. This is kind of a silver sort of look to it. So let's talk about all of our silver colored wire first, okay? So you should have 2 to 3 large loops that are probably all about the same thickness. One might be a little bit thinner, but these are the largest wires you have in this whole bin, okay? If we move on to other silver wires, this one is a little bit thinner. It's kind of a medium gauge or medium thickness, but it's still silver. And then we have a very, very, very teeny and fine silver wire, which actually we might even call wire thread sometimes. This is used for tiny little beadwork or tying other wires together. So this is the thinnest wire you should have in your kit. Okay. So again, thick, medium, thin, all silver. Okay. We set that aside. Make sure my glue bottle doesn't fall off. Now let's move on to the gold, right? So we have a medium and a thin gold wire, right? Both gold. This one's a little bit thicker than this one, but it's still not as thick as this giant stuff. We don't have any of this giant stuff in a gold finish. So medium and small with gold, okay? I'm gonna set that aside. And then the last thing that we have is a copper color, or maybe to you it looks more of like a rose gold. It kind of depends on the light you're in, but I'm gonna call it copper while we're working. So this is, again, it looks kind of like this funky, fun little star, but really it was because it was wrapped like this. And then when we let it go, it springs out like that. Anyway, this is, again, more of a medium sort of gauge. So it's not super thick. It's medium. And then this is a thinner or more fine gauge wire. But again, both are copper. Okay. So with all the wire you have silver, you have gold, and you have copper colors. Again, just to give you choices and some variety in thickness of the wire as well. So that's it. Everything in your kit we just went through. Make sure, again, please don't lose these things. You don't need to be taking them out to play with them, just play with them. It is kind of fun sometimes, but I also don't want you to lose them because you're going to need them when it comes time to do the specific projects. So that's everything you have. Hopefully that satisfies your curiosities for now, and just make sure to keep track of it. We'll get to all of it in time. Thanks, guys.